We recently helped a client win a large seven-figure RFP. And it's not the first time. Over the years, we've supported dozens of proposal efforts. Some of them we've lost, some of them we've won. And what's common about RFPs is that the stakes are super high. The competition is super fierce, timelines are tight, procurement processes are rigid. And in many cases, you're going up against incumbents who are the preferred vendor and helped shape the RFP from the very beginning. But after watching numerous firms go through this process, we've developed a few beliefs about what separates winning proposals from the rest. And in this video, we're going to walk you through what some of those lessons are and how you can take advantage. First, you want to get the boring stuff out of the way. Most RFPs include a host of seemingly mundane or minor requirements, things like formatting instructions, conflict of interest disclosures, diversity reporting, insurance levels, data security protocols. You get the idea. And it's tempting to ignore that stuff until the last minute. After all, who cares about your SOC 2 certification? What should matter is your actual approach to the problem that is prompting them to create the RFP in the first place, or so the thinking goes. But the problem with that is that procurement cares a lot. The first pass at any RFP is going to be a compliance review. And if you don't check those boxes, your proposal is likely to be filtered out before the stakeholders even get a chance to see it. Winning firms know this. They get that administrative stuff out of the way at the very beginning so that they can focus on what really matters later on. One tip there is to create, if you're going to do RFPs with any sort of regularity, create an RFP response checklist that you follow every single time. Get a lot of that stuff, a lot of boilerplate stuff out of the way the first time that you create it so you have it available. And actually in the notes, we have a link to an example of an RFP checklist that you could follow. Number two, treat discovery like gold. Often RFP processes include an opportunity for you to reach out to or to have stakeholder interviews. And you definitely want to take advantage of that stuff. Sometimes folks think that is unpaid work that they're having to do, and that's true. But they're going to be sharing their thinking with you. Often you're going to be able to uncover what some of the unstated preferences are. You'll discover things like if there are competing priorities between departments, who the internal champions really are and what motivates them, who the internal saboteurs might be, and what do you need to do to overcome their hesitation or resistance, what success will look like for the company and for the champions, and then unsaid fears that might be driving the project as well. All of that stuff allows you to write a proposal that resonates. And actually, that leads me to my third point, which is show that you listened. The best proposals actually reflect that stuff back to the decision-making committee or the decision-making team. And one of the most effective tactics that we've seen is including what we call verbatims from those stakeholder interviews directly in the proposal. And so you could have a line that says, one of our stakeholders told us that we need a partner who can move fast, but not skip the hard questions. And so you'll see that our approach was designed to navigate that tension. And this isn't just a trick. I think it shows them that you truly heard them and that you were paying attention to their real goals and that you're not just throwing a boilerplate playbook at the problem. And I think teams do notice this, and I think often they will reward it. And number four, don't just say what they want to hear. So you might be tempted by going through that process of customer interviews and capturing verbatims to just parrot back to them exactly what you think that they want. And a common mistake is to tailor that RFP so closely to what they say they want that you lose your own voice, you lose your own perspective, you lose what makes you different. And it's understandable you want to win the project, but they're hiring you to be a trusted advisor, not just somebody who is going to tell them exactly what they want to hear. And so if you believe that the approach is suboptimal in some way, I think you should say so. And obviously you can do this in a way that's respectful. You can acknowledge the thinking behind their current approach. And obviously don't change it just for the sake of changing it. But if you truly believe that there is an opportunity to do something novel or something a little bit better, then go ahead and take advantage of that. One other reason for doing this, in many cases, that RFP was shaped either explicitly or implicitly by an incumbent, like I said at the top. And so if you just parrot back their thinking, it's very likely that you're just going to look like a less good version of that vendor. And so you want to differentiate, but do so with integrity. Again, don't have to be contrarian just for its own sake, but also don't be afraid to propose a better solution if you see one. What are we on, number five? I think we're on number five. Don't skip on project management. We lost RFPs in the past, not because our ideas were invalid, but I think in hindsight, because we glossed over how the engagement would unfold. So project management, account management. And I think clients want to feel safe, right? These are big projects, and that means there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk to the company. There's a lot of political risk to the individuals who are making the decision. And so you want to reassure them that this is going to, not just that you're going to solve their problem, but that it's not going to look like a mess as it unfolds. And so things like what happens after this, so they say yes, what is the onboarding process going to look like? To the degree that you have certainty on a project plan, what do those deadlines look like? If you need to be a little bit fuzzy or give ranges, that's okay. But who specifically is going to be doing the work? How are you going to manage scope? And if things change as you learn, what do you need to do there? And then how do you keep things on track, and how do you identify risks and flag those things early? You don't need to overwhelm them, but I do think you need to show them that you've thought through delivery, and ideally that you have a consistent process for how you go about doing that. And so outline milestones, key roles, escalation processes, all of that kind of stuff. And this will give your clients a lot of more confidence and avoid you tripping at the 5-yard line. Number 6, talk less about yourself and talk more about them. Another common trap is spending too much time in the proposal on you and why you are so great, right? And those things matter. There will be some stakeholders who aren't familiar with you yet, who are going to be going through the proposal process, but include that stuff in the appendix, right? Your champion obviously knows who you are and why you're so great. It's why you got invited to the table in the first place. The bulk of your proposal needs to be about the client, about their goals, about their current state, about your solution. And you can include case studies that are relevant. You can include team bios, all of that kind of thing, but that is supporting material, not the main event. And so we like to include an appendix that includes like a real tight intro deck, which we've talked about elsewhere. Like I said, team bios, relevant credentials, relevant case studies, that kind of thing. Number 7, the scariest question is, have you done this before? This trips up a lot of firms, especially newer ones, if you're trying to pitch into a new industry. And our advice is to not panic, don't lie, but don't apologize for it either. I think you can speak directly to the closest proxy. You can acknowledge that this exact use case might be new, but you can draw on your relevant experience. So similar clients that you've helped, similar types of challenges that you've solved, your ability to ramp up fast through your discovery process to solve problems that you haven't addressed before. That was a very common one for us. In my previous life, ran an innovation consulting firm, and by definition, every project was brand new, right? Highlighting how your discovery process allows you to get to the core of the problem quickly. And then past firsts that led to good outcomes anyway. I think being honest about your position while still being confident in your ability to deliver for them is going to be a lot more credible than pretending to be something that you're not or embellishing. And in some cases, a fresh perspective is exactly what the client's looking for anyway, right? They've tried to solve this problem themselves, so they want a new set of eyes on it. And number 8, don't race to the bottom on price. So in large RFPs, procurement's going to set a budget or at least a range, right? And you want to be within that range. And to the degree that you can tease that out during discovery, often they're going to be cagey about that. But to the degree you can tease that out, great, but you do not need to be the cheapest. In fact, being the cheapest often hurts you because they might assume that you misunderstood the scope or that you're going to just change order them later. That's very common. A lot of times companies will lowball to win the work and then just apply change orders to make up the difference. But I think that's very short-sighted. You're wanting to win not just this project, but future projects as well. You're wanting to get referrals from that as well. I think that risks damaging your reputation. So instead, be transparent, show your pricing logic. You can offer phased approaches if they have budget constraints. You can anchor the price to outcomes. If they push back, you can trim on scope somewhere. Don't just try to lowball them. Pricing matters, but it is not everything. And often being the lowest solution is not necessarily the best solution. And smart teams know that. And then number 9, I mentioned the incumbent advantage, right? So use that to your advantage. The best time to win that RFP is before it's been written in the first place. You don't want to be in a position where the first time you hear about this RFP is when the document drops. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but you want to try to have those relationships baked in advance, right? And so you want to be the firm that gets to help shape that RFP. And you do that by cultivating relationships. And we have lots of content elsewhere around how you can go about doing that and how you can build long-term relationships. But a trusted advisor is built over time, right? In addition to sharing your best ideas through thought leadership, in addition to having a cadence for cultivating relationships over time, you can also do things like small risk, low budget, or even pro bono projects to get in the door. If you can get on the approved vendor list, you've already gone through a bunch of that stuff. And so that can be an advantage to you. Obviously, sharing relevant frameworks in advance can be really helpful. If they're a public company, you can read annual reports sometimes, and that'll give you clues into what some of their strategic initiatives are. You can kind of seed them with some of your thinking around some of those strategic initiatives, assuming that there's likely going to be projects related to that as well. But if you can help the client frame the problem before the RFP gets written, then you're in the driver's seat, right? You get to help set the terms. You get to seed the RFP with your ideas, which ideally positions you to win. So try to dig that well before you're thirsty. So, in a lot of ways, proposals are performances, right? It's a chance to demonstrate how you think, how you operate under pressure, how you communicate, how organized you are. The degree to which you're thinking is novel or not. But as always, it's also a trust building exercise. And so don't just play to win the work, play to earn their trust. Be the high integrity firm, be the firm that is thoughtful, be the firm that listens, be the firm that dots your I's and crosses your T's. And if you do that well, you'll not only increase your win rate, but hopefully we'll build a reputation over time that brings more RFPs to your door as well.